The Murdaugh name is no longer a symbol of prestige and power. After Alec Murdaugh's double murder conviction in the Low Country of South Carolina, all of a sudden, there is a cloud of suspicion that is building over him and the rest of the family. Are there other cases where they wielded their power and circumvented justice? Tonight, we take a look at another suspicious death from the Low Country. Stephen Smith, a young man found dead in the middle of the road. A case that has been reopened by SLED investigators in South Carolina. Is there any connection to any Murdaugh?
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. You know, I spent a lot of time down there in the Low Country covering the trial of Alec Murdaugh, and let me tell you, there are a lot of rumors floating around the Low Country of South Carolina. A lot of rumors. I mean, anywhere you go, anyone you speak to, especially the locals, you talk to them and they'll tell you a little something, you know, kind of off the record about, well, did you hear about this? And obviously, you know, some rumors are true, some rumors aren't true, but some rumors require action. They require someone to say, wait a minute, is there anything to that? Because if there is, this is really serious. And that's happening. That's happening. A case that has been reopened by SLED, the investigative unit down in South Carolina, have actually reopened the investigation into a death because of what people are saying and what people are hearing. And the way the original investigation was done. We're talking about the tragic death of a young man named Stephen Smith. And, you know, from the outside looking in, you look at some of the circumstances surrounding his death. I mean, it was a hit and run. That's what they're claiming, right? A hit and run, the original investigation. He's in the middle of some country road. And if you look at the road, like any of those roads down there, there are no street lights. Okay, so it's more dangerous, right? There aren't sidewalks, but wait a minute. Like, there's no one there. It's really quiet. So if you're walking down a street, you're gonna hear a car coming up. And if you're walking down the street at night, you're gonna see some lights. I mean, those two little facts make you think, how does someone walking down one of those country roads that I was driving around down there get struck? How do you get hit? How do you end up in the middle of the road? Like, why would you be in a position to get hit? How would you not have any sort of warning about it? And that's a big part of what makes the death of Stephen Smith suspicious. Also, the way the investigation seemed to go very quickly, and some of the facts associated with that investigation don't necessarily add up. Now, it may have been a hit and run. You know, what do they call it? A freak accident, right? And the person who did it, maybe they were under the influence, so they got out of there. I mean, it's possible. But it's also possible something else happened. So tonight on the show, going back to how I started, rumors, right? Is there any connection, or what's the connection in this case to the Murdaughs? Because that's the way the rumors are sort of floating, leaning towards them. And is it just because of the boat case? Is it just because of the double murder that now every little suspicious thing has something to do with the Murdaughs if it happened in the Low Country? Maybe, but maybe not. Remember this moment during the trial. This is when Alec Murdaugh is walking back into the courtroom after he's been convicted. Listen closely to what one of the people is screaming at Alec Murdaugh.
Alec, how does Buster feel about your guilty? How does Buster feel about you being found guilty?
Buster's next. Justice for Stephen Smith. Is there any connection? I don't know. All I know is the investigation has been reopened. And tonight, what I want to kind of zero in on is what is the genesis of trying to connect this somehow to the Murdaughs or to Buster Murdaugh, what happened to Stephen Smith. I want you to take a listen to Sandy Smith. This is Stephen's mom. She spoke with Chanley Painter about what happened to her son. And here are some of the things that she told us.
somebody was there. It was more than one person that done this, and somebody knows. And they set him up on that road to make it look like a hit and run.
What do you think happened to him?
I think he was beaten to death.
As far as that day, tell me about what Stephen was doing. You know, he was coming home from work.
No, he was in school. He had morning classes that day. And then he came home, took a shower, and, you know, left. Nobody knows where he went because he was kind of private. Yeah, so we didn't know where he went. He had a cell phone in his pocket. It wouldn't be the first time he had to call for somebody, you know. And but the car was locked. He had his phone and his key in his pocket. But then he left his wallet. So if you're going to go get gas, why would you leave your wallet in the car? And he wouldn't walk. No, he would have walked through the woods. He would not have been in that road.
And why did they reopen the investigation?
It was something they found while they were investigating Paul and Maggie's death, was all I was told. But what it is, I do not know. At first, I thought maybe it was something on his phone, Paul's phone. And then rumor was going out, they found something on his computer, and then they found a baseball bat. But I have no clue what it is, but I know I'm gonna know soon. Well, it was ruled by the pathologist that it was a vehicle versus pedestrian. But there was no damage anywhere. He had a dislocated right shoulder, and then his eye socket was broke. The whole back of his head was crushed. And he had some defense wounds on him. His shoes were still on. It first came up when Stephen's body was still at autopsy. And some of his friends came over, him and Stephanie's friends, and they said, you know, it was them Murdaugh boys that did this. And then I was like, and Stephanie come up to me crying, and I said, well, Steph, you know, you can't believe everything you hear. People's gonna talk, you know, so. And then it was like, you know, we never thought that. But then it just kept coming over and over and over again.
Again, rumors in the Low Country. Even Stephen's mom heard them originally. This all goes back to 2015, by the way. And if you want to do a little bit of math, I think Buster is about 18 years old at the time. The victim here was 19, Stephen Smith. So they're about the same age. But is there any connection? Like, where is this coming from? Joining me tonight in Columbia, South Carolina, attorney, host of the Cup of Justice podcast, Eric Bland, great to see you. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King is with us as well. Great to see both of you. Mike, I just want to quickly, from your perspective, a hit and run, a traffic accident, someone gets killed. Does this sound like that to you, based upon what you've read, what you've learned about Stephen Smith? Does it strike you as, okay, yeah, this is very consistent with what a hit and run would look like?
Well, there certainly could be head trauma. There could be trauma that some people could interpret as defensive wounds. I mean, certainly someone could put their hand up as a vehicle was approaching them quickly. So it's really going to boil down to the forensics and what that injury looks like, those defensive wounds, and whether those wounds are kind of positioned small and large, or all consistent in size. It makes me think of that old saying that he who's good with a hammer thinks everything is a nail. And we have to be really cautious that an investigator doesn't just pull up and say, hey, he's alongside the road, it's a dark road, and he probably was hit by a car. And when we do that, we end up spending all our time trying to twist all of the theories as they unfold to fit this mindset that we have, rather than looking at the facts and then coming up with theories. And I hope what we're starting to learn is facts, Vinny.
Yeah, and either way, it's an unsolved crime. It's still an unsolved crime at this point, so it should be wide open, this case. Not reopened, it never should have closed. Eric Bland, let me begin with you. Let me go to you now on these rumors and connections to the Murdaughs. I mean, were there Murdaughs there that night, the night that Stephen Smith was killed? Were Murdaughs contacting Stephen Smith's family?
Yes, Randy Murdaugh is alleged to have come on to the accident scene as well as calling Sandy Smith and telling her that he would be willing to represent her. She was curious as to what representation she would need. Look, Vinny, everybody universally agrees that he didn't die on that road that night, that something else happened. And the Murdaughs are no longer going to get the benefit of any doubt. For this to really move, I think they're going to have to exhume his body. And if the state is not going to do that, we are going to start a fundraiser to raise the money for Stephen to be exhumed, get a court order to get permission, hopefully, and then we'll know a little bit more, because until the body is exhumed and we can have a real forensic autopsy done, I don't think we're going to get anywhere, because certainly Alex is not going to talk. I don't expect Randy to talk. And, Buster, I'm not sure, is willing to talk. And if people aren't willing to talk, we're going to get nowhere. So I think it's going to have to be a forensic examination rather than a verbal disclosure.
Now, a lot of people, Eric, are taking the fact that Randy was there that night as kind of strange. And I'm trying to think of any circumstance of why he would be there. The only thing that came to my mind, Eric, is that he's a lawyer, personal injury lawyer. Maybe he gets tips from the local cops when there's a case that could perhaps, render some money to the most powerful personal injury firm in the Low Country. Is it possible that he's there that night because they've got connections with police, and police say, hey, let's call the Murdaughs, they probably have a good case here. Does that make any sense, or is that ridiculous?
Possible, not probable. He's not an ambulance chaser. That law firm is not an ambulance chasing law firm. You're not allowed to call somebody out of the clear blue and tell them you want to represent them.
I know you're not allowed to, but you're also not allowed to kill people also. So, there's big rules that you break and small ones, right?
Sure. There's rules of professional conduct, and I fully expect that law firm abides by the rules of professional conduct. Again, they're not a 1-800, chase your lawyer type of law firm. They're a very prestigious law firm. So I think there is a connection. And again, I think it's going to have to be a scientific forensic disclosure case as opposed to a verbal disclosure case.
Let's take a listen to, again, Stephen's mom here talking to Chanley about the Murdaughs. And she asked him about the Murdaughs. Let's listen.
Would it surprise you if had nothing to do with the Murdaughs?
I'd be happy. I don't like people getting a bad reputation because of rumors,
Sure.
It comes back to those rumors. I want to play for you something from Netflix, from the Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal. And again, it gets back to this theme. Like, I was down there. Everyone's talking about this. I mean, everyone. Take a listen.
There are facts that don't add up and bodies tied to this family.
The Murdaughs would just make someone disappear.
There were so many rumors that Buster and Stephen were intimate together.
Stephen's death is now intertwined with the Murdaughs.
All right, Mike King, how does an investigator go from everyone's talking, there's rumors everywhere, to getting to where you want to go, which is the facts of the case? How do investigators do that?
I think you have to dig right into the kinds of things that you know right off the bat. And I really liked Eric's idea of we got to exhume this body and do a thorough examination, have another set of eyes look at it. But in addition to that, there is forensic examination way beyond the body that could be really valuable in this case. Looking at phones. We don't know what SLED has uncovered in the course of their investigation that might have tied back. This young man's mother really intrigued me by saying that there is something there that they've got that she may have privy to. I don't know. But the forensics on the phone, does it put them together? Where did it put this young man, Stephen, on the night that he died, before the event and then at the time of death? What were people doing around him in that same circle, and how were they all coming together in this one place and time? And then as they start to get these little building blocks in place, we all know that that's when you start getting more questions that you need answers to. You start going down a different pathway than maybe originally you pursued, and you start uncovering things. I love the fact that people in the community are talking, hopefully not maliciously, but are getting the courage to say, yeah, but I remember this, and it really bothered me then, but all of a sudden it seems a whole lot more significant.
Yeah, I'm
Vinny.
Go ahead,
Vinny. Stephen was supposed to go that weekend fishing down in Florida, and he talked about it with his mother. He didn't tell her who he was going with. He said it was an important person. So that is a good fact. So I guess SLED will look into who in that area may have been fishing that weekend in Florida, and are there any communications with Stephen on his phone that would have enlightened that to show that he was in communication with an important person that was taking him fishing. That's the only other fact we know.
And I wonder how much investigating there was into the phone. I mean, our lives are on the phone. We just finished a trial where the phones were pretty important. Right. Pretty important. So let's see what they do. We're going to talk more about this investigation. Eric Bland, Mike King staying with us. When we come back, we'll get into a few more of the details of what happened to Stephen Smith. You know, where he was coming from, where his house was. The locations in this case, very significant as well. We'll be right back.
A budding romance allegedly cut short by a jealous ex-boyfriend.
The defendant told him, my ex was getting serious with this guy, and she was happy.
Single father of two, missing for nearly 3 years.
We have no explanation of what happened to him. We have no explanation of where Mr. Anderson would have put a body.
Court TV cameras are taking you inside the courtroom as this case unfolds.
The obsessed ex-boyfriend murder trial. Coverage continues weekdays at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
DriveTime.com.
So we went back to the scene, and by this time I'm pretty aggravated because, you know, we were told it wasn't hit and run, and I don't ever take, you know, you can tell me it's a train wreck. I don't really care what you tell me. I'm going to look around and verify for myself what I think happened. Because at the end of the day, I've got to explain my actions. So that scene was thoroughly walked. We looked at the injuries. It was not consistent with any kind of vehicle accident.
That's from the Impact of Influence podcast. Matt Harris there, Trooper Thomas Moore, not consistent with the hit and run. Let's take a look at a map, because I think the map speaks volumes here, okay? You're going to see 3 locations. The dot all the way to the right, that's where his car is, and apparently his car did not have gas, and the gas tank was opened, right? It was left open. Why? I don't know. Do you take a peek in to see if there's gas? The middle dot is where he was found. That's where his body was found. And then all the way to the left, the last dot, that is where he lives. Now, it seems, if you take a quick glance at it, that it's consistent perhaps with him walking home after breaking down or not having gas. But according to our calculations on Google Maps, we're talking about from his house to where he was found is 3.5 miles. Then it looks like it's another, 3 miles or so, could be more depending on which way you walked, to where his car was. So if you've got a cell phone in your pocket and you run out of gas on a country road, what are you going to do? Let's bring back Mike King, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Eric Bland, Cup of Justice podcast. All right, Eric, you live in South Carolina. These country roads, some of them are very dark. They're not really well traveled. That's what really struck me about a hit and run. Seems kind of unusual. But even the distance and everything here in this map doesn't really add up to me.
No, a normal person isn't going to walk at night in the dark. They're going to use their cell phone. They're going to call their mother, their sister, or a friend to come pick them up or to bring gas. According to Sandy, where he was found, he would not have taken that route to get home. She said that he often would walk off the road in the woods because having a gay lifestyle, he was very cautious in that area of the state on being alone. It's not a metropolitan area, and so he was a cautious young man due to his lifestyle that he led. So I don't think it adds up. I just don't. There's nothing in the road. I don't see a young man walking in the dark at that time of night on a country road when he has a cell phone. It makes no sense.
Mike King, he's got his cell phone, but he left his wallet with the car. That doesn't add up to me. And I would just think a simple, I mean, it can't be that difficult. A simple check the cell phone records. Did he call anyone? If you break down, you're going to call someone. And who he called maybe picked him up. I don't know.
Yeah, there's only a number of cell towers out there, so cell coverage is limited in some places. So that becomes an interesting factor that I'd like to see, because the cell towers and the sectors at that time might be a little different than they are today. You and I actually talked about cell tower sectors a lot on the Murdaugh case, Vinny, and so we have to take that into account. It's possible that there may not be coverage at that point, but it doesn't explain leaving if he's going to walk to get fuel, to leave his wallet behind. If he's walking to go home, maybe so. But then I want to know how many houses, and I haven't done a count, maybe Eric has, but how many houses did he pass along that path that he could have stopped and made a phone call from? I'm not as much troubled by the fact that he didn't cut through the woods like maybe his mom said he would, or others, if in fact it is dark, just because of how difficult it might have been to see. So I don't know. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map, and I've driven on a lot of the roads in that area, and you can go, a while without a house, and there may be a house on some property that's set back. But looking at this, these are not regular neighborhoods, Eric. These are true country roads. You just got to check his cell phone records. You check his cell phone records, I think that will open up the floodgates of information here.
Not only his cell phone records, but the people that are being mentioned in these frequent conversations. Randy Murdaugh, somebody can issue a warrant and find out, is there post-death talk that has taken place? It's not necessarily contemporaneous evidence that you're looking for, but a lot of times people give away their criminality later on down the road.
So let's get to, and you mentioned this, Eric, off the top, and Mike, agree with you. This is like probably the biggest issue at this point. There is a GoFundMe, Sandy Smith's GoFundMe, for an independent autopsy in this case, and this is what she writes. We feel it's critical to seek a new goal, an independent exhumation and autopsy, and we're launching Justice for Stephen N. Smith with that immediate goal in mind. While the state can elect and fund an exhumation and new autopsy, it is our understanding that it would be carried out at MUSC, where his death was initially classified as hit and run despite no evidence to support it. We need a new, unbiased look at his body and an accurate determination of his cause of death based on facts. There was no debris in the road, and his injuries were not consistent with a hit and run. So they are now raising money. Looks like it's up to almost $14,000. I'm sure the more people talk about it, the more people will want an answer. A lot of people are invested in justice and would like to see that done. Mike King, to me, as Eric said, this opens another door, a new set of eyes. What we can learn from this could be enormously productive in this investigation.
Yeah, we really need to see what that autopsy was from start to finish, to see what maybe they missed, because again, re-examining, heck, I go back to King Tut. Years later, they investigate this thing and figure out this guy has fractures that nobody knew were there before. The body is going to yield evidence, and it's going to tell us whether events happened before death or after death. And I think they're going to be able to learn a lot about what happened by simply comparing today versus then. And frankly, I don't know, in 7 years, how much have we improved in forensics, let alone in medical forensics? Maybe they're going to find something that we weren't able to find 7 years ago.
Okay, here's the
Vinny?
good news, Eric. I got some good news for
Vinny?
you. An update on the numbers. 20,000 now. They've raised 20,000.
That's awesome.
Vinny, I think the Murdaughs have done some things that are highly curious. You know, we know about Alex going to the hospital after the boating incident and pulling out his badge and going from room to room and trying to manipulate stories. We know that in 2017, there was an accident with Paul and Morgan and where the truck flipped and the Murdaughs, you know, came and they got the alcohol and the guns out of the car. So they do things that normal parents don't do. So I think they don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore, and people need to look into that.
Absolutely. Eric, looks like you're feeling good today. I know last night you were on the show from the hospital, Mike King. Unbelievable. And we wish you a speedy recovery. Eric, Mike King, thank you as
Thank
well.
you.
We'll see you
Thanks,
both
Vinny.
really, really soon.